Welcome to the last video in a series covering the 6 features within the component of lesson preparation. Today's video will focus on meaningful activities that provide opportunities for reading, writing, listening, and speaking. Once again, we're going to look at my lesson plan, but this time we're going to focus on my elaborate and evaluate sections. In our last video, we used can-do descriptors to make adaptations to our lesson plan. You'll notice we continue to use those can-do descriptors to make adaptations throughout the remaining lesson. In the elaborate section, we use the can-do descriptors to help us select the correct supplementary material. In this case, I chose to use live worksheets. LiveWorksheets.com has a number of interactive worksheets that you can search through that are already created, as well as the ability to make your own material interactive. Now let's take a look at why I chose this supplementary material for my Level 1 through 3 EL students. Notice in reading, my Level 1s and 2s are asked to match pictures to things and words, match sentences to pictures, and should be able to tell the difference between similar and different things. In writing, they're asked to label pictures, write short answers and finish sentences, and make lists of words that go together. For this reason, I chose to use LiveWorksheets.com. Notice in this worksheet that students are provided with labeled pictures, sentence stems with a word bank, and a graphic organizer. There are a number of different ways I could use this worksheet, but the key is to be intentional with my planning. Let's take a look at my student example from last video. Although memorizing each student's individual score is not important, noting that this student has higher reading and writing scores than listening and speaking will be important when I move forward and make groups. As a secondary teacher, I have a lot of students, so I use my can-do descriptor chart to sort students by English proficiency level in each of my class periods. I then use this chart throughout the year for student grouping and for instructional feedback for myself when a student seems to be struggling with a topic. As we move forward, I'll be referencing 6 different groups. As a reminder in my lesson plan, in the explain portion, I made 6 different stations. These 6 groups were intentionally planned to differentiate for different student proficiency levels. Using this chart, I have placed level 5 and 6 students in groups 1 and 2. Groups 1 and 2 have no accommodations, but although they are not receiving accommodations, I keep note of my level 5 students to check in with them and make sure that they have student supports within their group. Groups 3 and 4 contain level 3 and 4 EL students. This group's accommodation is the reduction of text and reduction of the amount of work that they need to produce. This additional time allows them more time to focus on reading, translating, and processing. Last but not least, groups 5 and 6 will contain level 1 and level 2 EL students and other struggling learners. Let's take a look at their modified reading and writing task now. Instead of using this worksheet as originally intended, I'm going to label the images and complete the sentence stems in order to provide students a concentrated source of information. I will remove the Venn diagram, but use it as the student's final formative, where students will use the Venn diagram as well as images that are labeled in the final portion of their day. While groups 1 and 2 will create their own graphic organizers to take notes, groups 3 and 4 will use the provided worksheet in order to keep them focused on the most pertinent information. Groups 5 and 6, which contain my level 1 and 2 EL students, will be matching words, images, and sentence stems from this worksheet in a Quizlet activity that I've created. Here, students can choose how they'd like to study. This activity is intentionally scaffolded for my level 1s and 2s since I plan on using the checkpoint activity as my exit ticket for the day's formative. As we move to the last portion of the lesson, I try to remain cognizant that I want to provide opportunities for all students to read, write, listen, and speak. I've intentionally chosen an activity that gets students up and moving. Just like as we started the day with a pear deck where all students would have to respond, having students up and moving and voting with their body is a great way to make sure all students are engaged and you can get formative feedback from all. In order to understand this activity, it's important to note that not only do I have visual vocabulary in my classroom, but I have the vocabulary spread across all 4 walls. Vocabulary words, like the ones shown here, are color-coded based off of the 4 large units of study we cover throughout the year. As new terms are introduced, they're added to the wall. When used during formative assessments, I ask a student from each wall to explain which term they chose and why. Students in the class are then allowed to reevaluate their choice and move to a new location if they desire. This activity provides plenty of speaking, listening, and reading opportunities, and the final writing opportunity will come with a Quizlet exit ticket. In today's video, we covered meaningful activities that provide opportunities for reading, writing, listening, and speaking. As we take one final look at the day's lesson plan, hopefully you will notice that with meaningful planning, we can provide plenty of opportunities for all 4 skills.